Hi, BookTube. So, today I would like to do my review of the Myst trilogy, written by the Miller brothers and David Wingrove. David Wingrove being the author of of my favorite sci-fi series, the Middle Kingdom series, and the Miller brothers, I believe their names are Robyn and Rand. I'll need to double check. I might be wrong with that, like it could be Robert and Rand, but I think it's Robyn and Rand. Those two brothers created the Myst computer games in the 1990s and early 2000s. And these novels are basically a spin-off based on the games. They were published in 1995, 1996, and 1997 respectively, the books. And the first game was published in released in 1993. So that's the basic background. Now, this is a fantasy slash sci-fi. I wouldn't say, a little bit of sci-fi, a pinch of sci-fi, but it's mostly fantasy, and there's a kind of magic system involved, which is hard magic, which is the process of linking to different worlds via books. More on that in a bit. So first, let's talk about the games briefly, because this is one of the main criticisms of this trilogy. It's that you have to be familiar with the games in order to fully appreciate the books. And I am familiar with with most of the games. So I know a lot of the backstory from playing the games. The Myst games, Myst 1 in particular, and Myst 4 was particularly beautiful. I never played Myst 5, and I did play Myst 3. Myst 2, Riven, I never played. I wish I did. I think they're downloadable online. You have to buy them online. But the Myst games basically go like this. So you're an unnamed character. You don't speak, but it's like you're moving around a maze. There are no enemies. It's not a fighting game, but you have to solve a series of puzzles in order to unlock doors, and then you will gather either information, so information on how to unlock the next puzzle, or pick up items that you deliver somewhere. And when you open up these puzzles, eventually they'll lead you back to a book, which goes back to the starting point when you go on these various quests. When you touch a panel of a book that transports you to a different universe, a different plane of reality, which are called ages. So the story, the plot in the games, I'm not going to dive into, because it'll just complicate this video. But if you've played the games, you will appreciate the books much, much more. That's the problem, because there's a lot of, shall we say, when you start with reading the books, you'll think, I need a little bit more context for this. I need a little bit more context for that. So it's not perfect. But once you have played the games, or but that aside, let's talk about the books themselves. Now, books 1, 2, and 3 are respectively called the Book of Atris, the Book of Tiana, and the Book of Denis. And their order, the order the books are published in, and the book order people write them in, is not in chronological order. So you can read it in chronological order, but then you have to flip between books. You can't just read 1, 2, 3. That's not chronological. So that's maybe another criticism. So book 1 takes place in between books 2 and 3. So book 1 is actually the middle book, the Book of Atris. And book 2 is chronologically the first book. Only book 3 is chronologically the third book. So I believe it's Robyn and Rand Miller and David Wingrove wrote all three together, co-wrote the first book. Then it was just Rand Miller and David Wingrove for the other two books. I will double check my facts. If I'm wrong, I will correct myself in the description. Or as a pop-up with the sentences, as an edit with the text. Anyway, so these books explore the world that the computer games created. And chronologically, books 1 and 2 begin before the first game. And then the second game, the first and second game, the second game picks up immediately where the first game, Myst 1, Riven picks up immediately where Myst 1 took off, the computer games. So book 3, book 3 takes place in between Myst 2 and Myst 3, the second and third games. And there's actually a lot of chronological space between game number 3 and number 4, so there's actually room for another book to be published there. I think they were planning on writing more books, but they canceled them due to poor sales, or they had ambitions elsewhere. I don't know. Although I might be behind on that. I'll double check on the mystery reader. Even here you can hear the goddamn motorcycles. Sorry, Christians. I get really angry with those motorcycles. Anyway, so I told you all of this stuff so you can, for some background and context and where you put each book chronologically. It is a bit of a mess, the chronology of the books. So now we can dive into the story itself. So book 1, the Book of Atris. Atris has been raised in a rock cleft, like a mini canyon, a depression within a volcano in the desert. He was been raised by his grandmother, and his grandmother tells him he is descended from a great civilization that is now gone, that is now destroyed. And they are among the last survivors of this great civilization. His grandmother actually is an outsider from this Denis civilization. So he is half Denis. No. A quarter Denis. And his father abandoned him when he was born, because his mother died in childbirth. So his father again just left Atris in the care of his mother Anna. So Grandma Anna is taking care of Atris. And then one day Gen comes back into his life and says, "Let me take you to the place where your ancestors came from, which is an underground cavern under the desert, under the surface of the earth, which is an underground civilization." This is sort of like Journey to the Center of the Earth kind of vibes by Jules Verne. Go there, and then he is introduced to he enters and sees all these ruins. And this civilization had the ability to do a magical kind of writing, the art they call it, of linking to places called ages. So anything you can imagine within time and space, within the rules of physics, of course. And sometimes the rules of physics can be bent even. Any location or description of a surrounding area that you can imagine exists somewhere out there in the multiverse. So if you write a land of mountains and rivers, and then you describe the shape of the mountains, you describe what kind of trees grow there, what kind of rock formations are there. You make a specific description of a location, that location exists somewhere out there. And when they write these books with this magical rune-like writing, a panel appears at the last page of a book. So it requires a special kind of book with paper and a special kind of ink. And of course, a special kind of language. Not the Denis traditional spoken language, but a kind of runic script that describes worlds. And then once you describe the world within the pages of this book, a panel appears like a window, which you touch, and then you are transported to the location described in the book. But you cannot come back unless you have what is called a linking book. So you have to they write these books called linking books, where they describe the location they are currently in. So then they can get back to their original location, which is Denis, which from the location itself, okay, based on what I read in the book, there's some references in book two, the Book of Tiana, of an Islamic empire and its deserts. I'm thinking it's somewhere in Morocco, somewhere in North Africa in Morocco. Now, so his father Gen takes Atris to where his ancestors came from, to where this lost civilization came from. And he teaches him, and Gen teaches him the art of writing. Now, I'm not going to get too deep into the plots of each book, because then we'd be here all day. But that's what the first one is. And then Atris later realizes that Gen is a little megalomaniac, a little bit of a sociopath, a little bit of a little bit full of himself, and he thinks he's some kind of god. Because when you write these worlds, you're not creating your own world, you're making a link to one. But his father Gen seems to think that while writing these books, he is a god by creating these worlds, which he is not. So if you write really badly, you can create unstable worlds. And there are stable worlds and unstable worlds. Gen's worlds are really unstable. But the ancient Denis civilization learned the importance of creating stable worlds. Now, the Denis civilization is explored further in Book 2, which takes place before Book 1, which describes the fall of that civilization. Is when Anna, Atris's grandmother, discovers this civilization and is adopted by them. But not too long later in the future, the civilization falls because of infighting and political intrigue. But this underground civilization is very, very advanced. They are underground dwellers, and in Book 2, their quest is to get to know the surface world. And Anna, who is studying the volcano, more on that in a bit, studying rock formations at the top, discovers tunnels that lead into this underground civilization, where she is adopted into this civilization and meets Atris, another Atris, who is Atris number 2, the second's grandfather. And they get married and they have Gen, and there you go. Now, the Denis civilization, they live in this underground chamber, and there is like a giant lake in this underground chamber that glows with a glow-in-the-dark, that has day and night based on a kind of algae that glows. So at certain periods of time they glow, at other periods of time it's dimmed. So they have a different clock of night and day in that underground chamber. Now this civilization in Book 2 falls, okay? And Anna escapes with her newborn son Gen. I'm not going to get, like I said, I'm not going to get too far into the details because then we'd be here forever. So the Denis civilization thrive because they have colonized several of these ages. That's where they get their food from, and that's where they get a lot of resources from. So it is a very, very advanced civilization. The surface world, which I already guessed is Morocco, I'm thinking it's sometime in the 19th century, by my guess. But it could be as early as the Middle Ages or as late as the 20th century. I don't know. So it is Earth, but it doesn't really get into the details of our civilization, of our, because the humans of this time and space of Earth never interact with the Denis of in the books, that is. Anyway, that's a lot of stuff to dive into anyway. So let's get into book 3 quickly, so then I can talk about stuff I like and don't like in this book and themes discussed. So book 3 is Atris again, which takes place after the first and second games, but before this third game, the computer games. And this is Atris trying to find survivors of the Denis civilization in ages. That he uncovers these books and travels to these ages to find Denis survivors from the fall. They've been there for decades when their civilization fell. And then he and his wife Catherine, who he met in book 1, by the way, his wife Catherine, who is from one of these ages. He and his wife Catherine and some other of his followers discovered this world called Tirachni, which is one of the most spectacular, one of the most beautiful, one of the most Eden-like realms you'll ever see. But secretly, it is a slave society. And when they enter it, and this is the only place where I'm going to give you some spoilers, because book 3 was probably my least favorite because of what happened. They inadvertently caused this slave civilization to collapse. They sort of had it coming because it was a slave civilization, but the fact that Atris brought it on them, which comes into one of the themes, which are more on that, brings the destruction on them just by his arrival with his group of fellow survivors of the Denis fall. Them going to this civilization, discovering this age and finding the Tirachni, who are also practitioners of the art of writing for getting to other ages, other worlds. Their civilization is a slave civilization, and just by Atris arriving, their civilization collapses as well. You'll have to read the books to know what I'm talking about. Anyways, that's what happens in book 3. So there's actually plenty more that can be written. I wish they'd written more, to be honest. So that's it. So some general themes. I like the description of the romanticization of writing journals, of exploring new worlds, of studying rock formation, conducting scientific experiments. These books really romanticize the inquisitive mind of Atris, his grandfather Atris, his grandmother Anna, and his wife Catherine. And one of his followers, one of his proteges, a girl called Marim from another one of these ages. The Denis do write the art, but outsiders can also do it. Anyway, this book romanticizes the inquisitive mind. Camping out, the study of geology, the study of biology, of plant life, of rocks, the inquisitive scientific method. This book romanticizes it. And it talks about the delicate art of writing these ages, so you know exactly what you get, so you don't create an unstable age. This book has a lot of elements of environmentalism, like delicate ecosystems and delicate balances that can be disrupted by man, or are unstable if you write them incorrectly. So it talks about like, just like this, just like Earth with the Goldilocks zone, like it is so, like the circumstances of sustainable life are, how do we put this? Are very delicate, are, you need just the right amount of so and so of heat and light and so on and water in order for life to thrive. So the book talks a lot about these delicate balances in nature and how mankind intentionally or unintentionally disrupts these ecosystems, or it's just unstable period and hence cannot sustain life, like Venus, for example. This is me. I know I'm in this video, I'm throwing out a lot of word salad, but there's so much I can say about these books that I really try to put everything in as much and in as quick sound bites as possible. Anyway, I highly recommend this Myst trilogy. Despite the chronology being a little bit odd, and despite the fact that you should have played the games in order to appreciate it more, I would still recommend this book. These books. It's beautifully written. It prompts me to go out there into the world and say, hike up that mountain, go out and do more bird watching, do your research, be a scientist, be a doctor. It really romanticizes science and the inquisitive mind. I repeat myself, but that's the general theme that you get from these books. And book 3, the Book of Denis, when the slave civilization collapses, they had it coming, but it also shows like there's no easy answer. Book 3 had no easy answers. Like if you come in, like there's things like invasive species, or like introducing disease into the Americas from Europe, when the European colonization, that thing. When we Or like how Australia has these strict controls on customs, because things like insects from outside Australia could really wreak havoc on the ecosystem of Australia. These kind of questions are asked, and there's no easy answers to them. To be quite frank, like sometimes it's better to leave an ecosystem alone because exploring it might damage it. But we really can't do that now, can we? We really must get to know. So how do we explore? How do we understand nature, and how do we get to know the world? How do I know, for example, how do I know all the bird species in the world without damaging their natural environment? How do I get to go to every nook and cranny? A lot of people want to do that. So we talk about ecotourism. I'm rambling there. But book 3 addresses that hard question of, there is no easy answer to preserving a culture and a society, and then outsiders might cause its downfall. Similar to book 2 with Anna coming in. It's just not an easy question to answer. Okay, I've rambled on long enough, but please, I hope you read the Myst trilogy.